welcome all of you. This is our second in the series of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Okay. It is going to be an ongoing series, and this is our second on the same topic on racial disparity in the workplace. And so do know that while the panel is discussing the topic, that we will be taking questions. So do post any questions that you have in the Q&A icon. And then after the panel completes their discussion, we'll take as many questions as we can fit in the remaining time that we have. I wanted to ask Dean Apothaler, did you want to say a few words before we get into the discussion?
Let me just welcome you, all of you, to this event. It's been an interesting year for all of us, and I think the rocky start of today's panel session is just a great testimony to how interesting that year was, right? Most of you, I assume, are students, so let me really just say a big word of thanks to you for working with us, the faculty, staff, and administration of Cal Lutheran. We admire you. You inspire us with your persistence and your hard work and your excellence in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And as you know, education doesn't only happen in the classroom, it happens also at events like this, where we bring back our alumni to help the next generation of successful business leaders, especially on an important topic such as diversity, equity, inclusion, racism. With that, I wish you an interesting event, and I hand it back to Dr. Shane.
So thank you, Dean Apothaler. So it is my great privilege to introduce to all of you the moderator for today's panel, Miss Jeannette Pugh. Ms. Pugh is a human resources professional who has worked for such organizations as Merck, Technicolor, and Amgen. She is currently working on her doctorate in global leadership and change at Pepperdine University. Ms. Pugh is on the California Lutheran's School of Management Dean's Advisory Council, which is a mouthful, and a member of the School of Management DEI Steering Committee. So, Jeannette.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shane, and thank you as well, Dean Apothaler. I really appreciate being able to be part of this continued series of discussing diversity in the workplace and helping to prepare students and the Cal Lutheran community for interacting with varied different people, cultures, and even multicultural individuals. So it's really a delight to be able to join my illustrious panel that I will also ask if we can have all of them sharing their screens so that we can do an introduction of our panelists, and then we'll get into a wonderful panel discussion. I also am so pleased that perhaps some of you attended the previous session, and I think that you will find that this session has a different level of global and international flair to it, and you'll know why I say that as I begin to introduce our illustrious panel this evening. So first and foremost, starting with Thembi Moyo, who is a Cal Lutheran alum and also a CPA and Director of Business Services at Amgen. We're so delighted that Thembi could be here with us this evening. And we'll shortly ask each of the panelists to give a little bit of insight on themselves as well. We also have with us as a panelist this evening, Nighat Shah, who is currently in the Cal Lutheran Master's Program as a MBA student. She's also currently employed at Cal Lutheran as the administrative assistant at the Center for Global Engagement. And so we're delighted to have Nighat here with us this evening as well. And then last but certainly not least, we have Victor Fakrogha, who is Regional Market Manager with Community West Bank and also a Cal Lutheran alum. So again, delighted that our panelists could be here, and thank you for all of those that are joining us this evening, especially given some of our technical difficulties. So to get right into a bit of an introduction now, where the panelists can share a little bit about their very varied backgrounds and the wonderful diversity of perspective that you will shortly be able to benefit from, I'm going to ask Thembi to share a little bit more about her background as part of her introduction to all of the participants.
Thank you, Ms. Jeannette. I hope everyone can hear me. It is a privilege to be here speaking with all of you. I always love when I come back to Cal Lutheran because that is, those are my humble beginnings. So just a little bit about myself. I came to America, landed in Los Angeles in 1997. The purpose of my coming here was to attend college. And so I was a Cal Lutheran student. I graduated in the year Y2K. So that was the year that everything was supposed to come to an end. Obviously it didn't, that's why I'm still here. I graduated with an accounting degree, and I've been in the finance world since I graduated. So after Cal Lutheran, I actually pursued a master's degree, traveled to Indiana, and I was at the University of Notre Dame, and I got my master's there. But after graduating, I quickly realized also that Indiana was not the place for me. So I returned to what I called my new roots, which was still in Thousand Oaks. And I currently work at Amgen. I've been there for 7 years. I've worked in other industries as well, but I've been at Amgen for 7 years. And I'm currently the Director of Business Services over there.
Wonderful, Thembi. Thank you so much for sharing your background. And I know from our prior discussions that you specifically come from Zimbabwe. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I neglected to mention that I when I came in '97, I was coming from Zimbabwe. So I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, came here as an adult to attend college, yes.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait for us to get into a little bit more dialogue around your unique international perspective and coming from a different country and adjusting to various diversity here in the US. We will segue, however, to Nighat, just as way of a brief introduction. And Nighat, please share a little bit more about your background.
Thank you. I'm Nighat Shah. I work currently in the Center for Global Engagement as an assistant. When I started with Cal Lutheran, it was 7 years ago. I started in the International Student Services and Multicultural Program. And my boss at that time, my supervisor was Dr. Juanita Hall. She was also assistant to the chief diversity officer. So through her, I learned a lot. But my story, I would say, began when I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. And then I came to the United States in 1993 on a fiancé visa after I was engaged to my husband. And since then, it's been a long time. Yeah, I guess I'm revealing my age right now, but yeah, I'm a mother of 4 kids who are born American. And at times we do have that contrast between cultures and me expecting them to be raised like I was raised in Saudi Arabia, but then being American born here, it gets difficult. So yeah, this is just part of the journey, and thank you for allowing me this time to talk.
Thank you, Nighat. We're so delighted that you can be here. And I think our participants are already getting a sense of the international flair that our panel discussion will offer this evening. And so we do want to allow as well Victor to provide a little bit of an introduction of himself as well to our participants.
Good evening, guys, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you guys this evening. As Thembi said, I'm really excited to be back to Cal Lutherans. Very great school, had a lot of good experience there. Kind of my background also immigrated to the United States from West Africa, particularly Nigeria. I got my master's from Cal Lu. That was my introduction to Cal Lutheran. I always tell people, I wish I found this school for my undergrad, but I still got, really felt like family there. Done a lot of things. I'm currently in the financial industry, been there for 20 years. Very funny if you ask. I know some of you are students right now. How did you get into finance? It was a long journey. I came from the entertainment world, acting and modeling. So maybe we could talk about how you could find yourself in the financial world if that's what you choose to be. So I'm looking forward to sharing my experience and answering any questions you guys have today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. Well, I think one of our pre-submitted questions is a perfect way of us beginning our discussion this evening, because in looking over pre-submitted questions that came in, the first one on the list was, how do you approach including diversity without making one's race the only factor? And I find that even how that question is worded to be interesting and an opportunity for a little bit of us sharing some additional knowledge, because even when we think about asking someone their race, for example, that is very much a US-centric construct. Those of you that have traveled internationally might know that it's not necessarily a question that comes up when you're going to Europe and other non-US countries. As a matter of fact, my mother used to always say to me, we're all part of the human race. So to even ask one's race is something in itself that always was puzzling to me. I love the fact that our panelists this evening represent different cultures, and how the US Census is certainly predicting a shift in the demographics of the workplace, and how the focus of this panel discussion is really around dealing with racial disparity and those differences in terms of demographics. It's really about broadening one's mindset beyond a US-centric perspective that is grounded in this construct of race, as opposed to what really needs to be a multicultural, broadened mindset of diversity in its truest sense, which includes diversity of perspective, diversity of thought from an educational perspective, diversity of just knowledge and awareness. This evening, we have the benefit of panelists from multicultural backgrounds, which also represent diversity in its broadest sense, being able to provide global perspectives, which are more and more required of not only leaders within the workplace, but employees as well. And so we're embracing this thought of diversity in its broadest sense this evening. It's beyond that cliche question of what one's race is. And so I wanted to address that first question up front. And how do we approach diversity without making one's race the only factor? Certainly this evening, we're going beyond race. And again, we're all members of the human race. So even to ask that question is perhaps just a bit intriguing and makes one pause to think about it perhaps a bit differently. With that said, we'll start with Thembi, who again comes from Zimbabwe and came specifically to the US first and foremost to get education here at Cal Lutheran. And so Thembi, having come from another country, please tell me about what helped you find a sense of belonging and what techniques did you use to acclimate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And thank you for that question, Jeannette. I would say, when you're going to anywhere new or you're experiencing something new, you have a level of nervousness, you have a level of excitement. For myself, in my personal experience, coming here was the first time that I was traveling on my own, was the first time that I'd ever left my parents' home, was the first time for me to explore anything new. And I was really excited about it. And I would say, coming to Cal Lutheran and thinking, wow, I get to go to university, I get to stay away from my parents, and I get to do all these things on my own. The first 3 months, I would say I had this level of euphoria and excitement because everything that I encountered was so new to me. And so taking it all in with all of the excitement, I didn't really learn too much in the beginning. And then after your 3 months, when you actually settle in and think, okay, now this is my home, now this is my college, you're working on assimilation. And for me, what I found was I wasn't only coming into a new country, and even though I could speak English, that's not the only language I had to learn. There were so many things that I had to learn from a cultural perspective. And so what I realized was, yes, we're all human, but from our cultures and how we're raised, country to country, city to city, we're also different. And the language that we speak not only is a language that is distinguished by English versus Spanish versus Chinese versus whatever, but it is a cultural language. And so what I started to quickly learn was, in order for me to assimilate, in order for me to be successful, I needed to learn a whole new language. And that whole new language meant I needed to understand, what is this culture? What do they mean when they have this kind of body language? What do they mean when they say certain things, or how they say it, and all of that? And what is important to this culture was something that was not important in my culture. So I had to learn all of those things and get up to speed on that. So not only was I getting up to speed on my formal education, I was also having to get up to speed on all the nuances. So it's kind of like two-sided, right? So you have people who, when they approach someone new, they're really curious. So they approach the friendship with the level of curiosity, and they're kind, and they ask questions, and they're inquisitive. You have some people who approach something new as a threat, and so that approach is more judgmental. So as you stand, they judge you based on whatever information they may have collected in the past about you. And so I also had to learn how to navigate. How do I navigate the different types of people, and how I approach them and how they approach me, in order for me to assimilate and be able to penetrate this culture and be successful and thrive? So, I mean, without getting into too much detail, the big takeaway for me was the learning and the language and the culture was such a steep learning curve. Even after I graduated, when I went into the workforce, it was still a big learning for me because of all those cultural nuances that I had grown up with that were ingrained in me. So part of success when you're coming into a new environment is learning what the language is, what it means, and how you can understand. More than me being understood, I realized that it was more critical for me to understand because most people are not really interested in understanding you when you're coming into their world. So success for me meant I needed to quickly learn what the language was where I was coming in order for me to be competent.
Thembi, thank you so much. I love those nuggets of wisdom that you've shared. And as a human resources professional, I am compelled to bring up the idea of cultural competence, because that's really what you're speaking of. And for any of the students that are part of this discussion, or perhaps will be listening to the recording of this later, there is a entire arena of study around cultural competence and learning what Thembi has so eloquently stated as, the language of different cultures. That is so critical to us learning to embrace our differences. So thank you so much for that, Thembi. We will remind our participants that if they have further follow-up questions for you, they can submit those through the Q&A icon at the bottom of their screen. And I'm sure that we'll be coming back to you with some additional questions. I'd like to transition, however, at this point to Nighat and ask her yet another question that was pre-submitted so that we are addressing those things that we know were of interest to participants this evening. So Nighat, given your work at the Center for Global Engagement at Cal Lutheran, I think this question is perfectly suited for you. What type of training is needed to enter in the diversity and inclusion field?
Thank you. So yes, there is, when I joined the center, I was closely working with the diversity officer. So I was exposed to many training that we had. One of them was just a series of leadership training, series of cultural competency series that we used to host in our center for different staff members to come and just learn about each other, learn about the student that we serve, and the cultural I can't pronounce that word, competency was very, very successful. Every year, different staff member wanted for this series to keep going. Another training that was very beneficial to me personally, it was the Safe Zone training. So the Safe Zone training, for you who don't know, is an opportunity to learn about the LGBT plus identities, gender, and sexuality, and examine prejudice, assumptions, and privileges. An example of a safe training, it would be after the training, everybody would get a sticker to put either on their window or their desk or something to kind of indicate to the people that we serve that you are welcome here, and we are an ally. So I did this training a long time ago, I would say 7 years ago. But just not too long ago, I didn't realize what that training did to me until I was kind of in a situation of experience, for personal an incident that happened with me. I was at my workplace, and one of my colleagues who identified as from LGBT community came and stood by me, and he seems a lot taller than he was. So I looked down, and he was wearing heels, like a lady's heels. And okay, I knew he's from the LGBT community. I didn't know that he's transgender too. And that was my first exposure to somebody from this community. To be honest with you, it was a little bit uncomfortable moment for me at the beginning, where I didn't know how to react to it. This is my first time being with somebody who identified from this culture. So all these stuff that I learned in the Safe Zone training came to me, rushed in my brain, that this is why you took this training, and this is why I'm supposed to be prepared. So for initial kind of a reaction, I said, oh, it's beautiful heels. I would wear them in a minute, and then after that, just that incident opened the door to so much conversation between us about the perception of each other, like perception of him, of me as a religious person, my perception of him, from this community. And we talked a lot, and until now, we are kind of best friends. We talk with each other. We invite each other in our house. So I don't think that would have been possible if that incident did not happen. You know, yes, I was an ally. Yes, I attended the training. Yes, I had the sticker on my desk. But you know, those kind of experiences that we go through in our real life is what teaches us, and that was a learning moment for me. So this is one of the training. Another training, I would say, many organizations right now that they're thinking about doing it. We had it in the CLU. It's called the Bridge Program. It was religious diversity bridge program. So it was a group of people from different religious backgrounds. Each other talk about their religion, talk about what's their perception of other people. So that was such an important one for me, and I'm sure for others too, because religion is such a sensitive topic at workplace. You know, people don't talk about it, and when the people don't talk about it, so when they experience something, they don't know how to manage it. You know, so talking about it and training it is very important. So this reminds me of an incident that happened to me. When the San Bernardino shooting happened with a female terrorist, I came to work, and because I come from the same background that my family is from Pakistan, and I came to the United States through the fiance visa, which was the same for her. People who knew that about me, they took me and they said, Nighat, don't tell your story to anyone anymore. And that was a moment when I think, no, this is a perfect moment for me to tell my story, because this is the time when people need to know that not every female person who wears hijab, who came in a fiance visa is a terrorist. You know, they need to know. If they know me, then they know that we shouldn't be put everyone in the same umbrella. So that incident was very good, and kind of everybody around me, even the university people, they start like having more conversation about what Islam is and what Muslims are and what is our interests are, you know, and just like reduces a little bit of the Islamophobia. Yes, there is a lot work needed still, but it just gives the people different perspective on when they get to know a Muslim person. They start getting to know, okay, what is the reality and what is the things that is politician makes it look like, you know. So yeah, that's part of what you know, I learned. And another training that we had is the VetNet Ally training. It's a training that or a program in education that gives awareness for the military personnel and the veterans. And it was such an important training, because I was very hesitant to go there, because I felt like I don't know if I'm going to be welcome in that, but I needed to do it. So I did it. It was very good. And it was so useful to me. So another story I might share with you, and I'm going to try to make it short, that at one event, there was a Saudi National Day. And in the Saudi National Day, the Saudi student, what they did is they put the Saudi flag, and then they put the American flag, just like to kind of show the solidarity, and they wanted more American to be attending that event. However, they did a mistake that was really bad, and it was caught by a veteran. So the mistake that they did is that they put the American flag upside down, and the veteran affairs person, he came and he told them that this is wrong. They actually right away they fixed it, but they came to me. I was the advisor for the Saudi club, and they told me what happened, and I, beside apologizing a lot and written all that, I wanted it to be a moment of kind of teaching. So we got together after the event, the 3-4 people from the Veterans Affairs and the Saudi student, we sat together, we had coffee together, and we just discussed about the flags. What does it mean and where that mistake happened? So of course that mistake happened because they didn't know what it means for an upside down flag, you know, and what is the flag means, and they shared each other's, you know, perspective. And believe me or not, until now, they are friends. They talk to me and they say, if that moment did not happen, we would have not been friends. They go to play soccer together and all that. So that was just a teaching moment for everyone. And, that training really helped me to kind of put things into perspective and handle the situation. So yeah, that's all that happened.
Thank you so much, Nighat. I love your personal stories and the fact that you've shared so many different lived experiences that, to me, one of the takeaways that I hear in your sharing your learnings is that really just simply taking the time to have genuine conversations with others and leveraging every opportunity, in your words, as a moment of teaching and just learning about different cultures and different people is just so critical for students as well as anyone to really broaden their insights when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and equity. And so it sounds to me, what I'm getting as a takeaway from what you're sharing is that through simply living and being open to talking to different people, that in itself is a diversity training.
Because until we know that person, until we know somebody from that, we keep like a wall in front of us, or some kind of like fear, unknown, the fear of unknown kind of. So when we know that, then we get so relaxed and okay, so yes. I thought it, but it's this. So,
yes. What a great point, Nighat. And we'll transition to Victor to ask him a specific question as well. Before we transition to Victor, just to wrap up as well and add a little bit in terms of other common diversity training that Cal Lutheran students might expect when they enter the workforce is very typical for a lot of companies to offer anti-harassment training. Historically, that has been mostly focused on preventing sexual harassment in the workplace, but it has become more commonplace for most employers to add in to their anti-harassment training in the workplace what they call diversity training. Sometimes it is also referred to as unconscious bias training. That has become a bit of a cliche these days. I like the play on words that I've heard from others in the diversity, equity, and inclusion community who challenge the thinking of unconscious bias training and instead propose that we have conscious non-bias training so that we're focused more on being intentional of our biases that actually are just a natural part of being human. But anyway, those are examples of some of the additional trainings that one might expect in some of the workplaces today. With that said, we're going to transition to Victor with yet another pre-submitted question that we had received, Victor. And that question is, what have you learned by working in companies without diversity, equity, and inclusion practices that you would include if you owned a company?
Thank you. That's such a great question. I'm not a betting man, but I will say if I were to bet you a quarter, there is no company existing that will stand and tell you they don't have a diversity and inclusive program or they're not inclusive in their company. But with everything we've seen going on around the world and particularly in the United States, we can see that we have a long way to go. So we want to move from the paper and the theoretical idea of what diversity and inclusion means to actual being practical about it. And to tackle that question, I mean, the good news is I believe that with everything we're seeing now, there's been some improvement or intentional actions to correct some of these things because companies are beginning to learn that diversity and inclusion just creates a lot of benefits. Some of the benefit for these companies, for example, we see what's happening in the tech world. It's increased productivity, increased creativity. There is a reduced fear in the workplace, which increased trust, improved performance overall. And at the end of the day, every company wants to boost their brand reputation. So these are the benefits that companies are beginning to see. Now, if I were running my company, or if I was advising a company today, why is it that we have this disparity in the workplace? And the number one thing is lack of opportunity. So when you go to the workplace, and myself, my own personal experience in the financial industry, you don't see a lot of my kind in the C-suites. And the question is, why is that? Is it because there are not talents out there? No, because there's no pipeline of recruiting or grooming set of people. One of the things I said was, when I talk to people is, of course it's natural. We all love comfortability, what we're familiar with. So the first thing I'll be drawing in my company is discussing, ways to look at things we've not done before. And my cliche saying is French, right? It's a deja vu. Everybody wants things that they're familiar with, things to repeat itself again. My motto was say, let's try some jamais vu, which means basically something different. Let's try something different. So in the hiring process, this will be very practical and real. So if we are going through a pool of candidates that we want, the idea is we always go to one particular pool of candidates to look at. Why don't we mix it up? Why don't we try something we've not tried? And I'll tell you, being in management, in banking, of course, if I wanted to hire somebody, right, you'd be looking for somebody's financial background, what they've done around accounting and things like that. But believe it or not, in my career, I've hired waiters. Because when I'm in the restaurant eating, I am watching the way they're taking care of me. And, people look at me, are you crazy? How do you hire a waiter as a banker, right? But see, they have to start somewhere. So I've taken that leap out of the box to hire somebody that has seen the potential. And as they say, right, you can train people to become something, but you cannot train attitude. You cannot train zeal. You cannot train passion. So if you have that, then the rest is easy. So that's the hiring process. Now the promotion is also another aspect of it. Who are you looking to promote? Who are you looking to give the next opportunity? As we say, are you looking for the perfect square, the person that has everything? Or do you want to try something new? New assignment, new tasks. So engaging your employees in your company. So it might be a new project that is coming. It might be a group that you want to form, but mix it up and give people the opportunity to be able to try out themselves, and then you'll be surprised. And I believe most of you we're talking to right now are undergrad. So this is very, very pertinent to you, right? You're just out of college. Some of you have not had any job at all. And the question would be, how do you get in? How do you get a job? You don't have the experience. So it kind of falls down to the theme of what I'm talking about. Being able to give people that opportunity to be able to have kind of, the word is opportunity, to try to be able to get in, to show themselves. And then on the other side, what I say, being students, to be practical, because sometimes we don't have controls over these companies. So what can you do on your own to be able to highlight this stuff? And the biggest thing is being prepared. Because when I say prepared, in the other, a minute ago, I talked about you can train attitude. So I will say, being your best, continue to grow, get yourself a mentor. And in the university world right now, you might think, well, I don't know anybody in the workforce, but thank God for LinkedIn today. Connect with people, CLU is very easy. You see CLU in the name. Most of the time, professional people, we will look at somebody coming from CLU and we will connect with you. So, look for a mentor, maybe, that could take you closer to where you want to go. And then back to the employer again, because I'm trying to put all the earners on the employers. And as we are talking, my company, right? So it's also learning three things, right? Seeing people, seeing your employee. How do you see them? As I said, approach them, give them an assignment, really be invested in them. Also hear them. So basically, if an employee, if an employee has an issue or an employee is not speaking, is somewhere doing a good job, go out there and reach out and ask them how their job is going. And then most importantly, shows that you care about their progress, because some people are bold, and I'm one of those people. Not everybody's like that. One of my story was very, very funny, because I was at a job and I just felt that I wasn't growing and the job was just not taking me anywhere. And I picked up the phone. This is a $1 trillion company, can't mention the name. And I called the CEO and I left this message. I said, hey, this is great, but I'm not growing here. You guys are not using my talent. And I really think that you're missing out by not, giving me the full potential to show you what I can do. Of course, being that high, I didn't get a call for 2 weeks. I already pissed off. I said, see, they said they care, and I called and nobody called me back. But surprisingly, 3 weeks ago, I got a call from the executive secretary, and she apologized, that the CEO apologized and said that he's been traveling and scheduled a meeting for me to meet him in his office. I was very scared, of course, but cut the long story short, I went upstairs, I met with him, and young man, sit down, he said, and he just started laughing. He said he has never in his 20-something years career, whatever he said, that he has never seen anybody that bold. So what happened was we talked, we got to know each other, and gave me some advice, and some of it, actually, he was the one that advised me to go get my my MBA. I was going to go to law school. And for some reason, he went to law school and he convinced me not to go to law school. And I ended up doing my MBA. So he was such a great force in my life. Again, can everybody do that? No. So this is why I said it all goes back to the companies, because I would have left that company. I ended up working for that company for 10 years and did very well. And so that's what I would encourage you to make sure that you are ready for that opportunity, because sometimes the opportunity will come. And if you're not ready, then it will pass you by. So at any point in time, as you're doing things, you have to be conscious of what you're doing, understanding where you want to take yourself, and not to be too caught up with what's not working, but be caught up with what can I do to be able to advance myself. And with both sides, especially going back again to the employer, really understanding the benefit of a cohesive, inclusive work environment, I think we'll make great progress.
Thank you so much, Victor. That was just an incredible sharing of lots of great tips and suggestions. I love some of the key takeaways that I'm hearing from what you shared, which include really preparing ourselves for future opportunities and making sure that when the door is opened with various opportunities, that we're ready to step into the door. You also speak about being bold, and that speaks to the fact that sometimes we have to open a window if that door isn't yet open for us. And so I love that personal example of how you were bold and took a risk in reaching out to the CEO. You also shared the tip that hopefully some of our students listening are taking note of in terms of actively seeking out mentors. And one great suggestion of just reaching out via LinkedIn to perhaps other Cal Lutheran alums or, others, friends of the family, things of that nature, finding a mentor can really be helpful in accelerating a person's assimilation and their success within a company. And so I think those are all critical points. I want to remind the panelists, well, actually the participants actually, that of all of the wonderful lived experiences that our panelists have shared tonight, our participants have an opportunity to ask follow-up questions. And so feel free to submit any of your current questions through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. As we have the panelists also reflect on perhaps one key takeaway that you would share with students in terms of what else they need to do to prepare for the workplace, whether it's, you know, the challenges of getting a job, the challenges of what to search for in looking for a job, especially if they are particularly interested in being in a company that actually does embrace diversity. Something that Nighat had mentioned with regards to the types of training that's available. It can be very insightful if a company offers any diversity training whatsoever versus not. And also looking for positions at companies that suggest that they actually value diversity. Generally, companies, most of them these days, as Victor mentioned, do mention diversity somewhere in their values. Most companies as well do have directors of diversity oftentimes. Sometimes they have diversity, a chief diversity officer. If that role is one that is reporting to the CEO, that tends to speak volumes in terms of its importance, as opposed to that role being perhaps buried under legal and reporting into the legal office. So little subtle insights as to which types of positions to look for in companies, if diversity is something that is of importance to you. Those types of clues can give further insight into how seriously a company even values diversity. So with that said, we're checking the Q&A to see if there are any questions being submitted live, but I'll open it up to any panelists that want to share a few key points for students, particularly around getting a job, overcoming challenges perhaps that relate to dealing with stereotypes or bias, and what you looked for when searching for a job. Any of our panelists want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I think, you know, I loved a lot of what Victor said because it rang so true for me at the very beginning when I first came to this country, when I got my first job, all of those things. You know, your attitude is one of your biggest assets that you have. And when you have a great attitude, you know, you draw a lot of people to you. A lot of people are interested in working with you. When you have an air of, you know, I'm here to develop myself, there's nothing that is really beneath me, you're willing to do what it takes. People love that. Employers love that, you know. So, and also building your network, right? So if you're utilizing the network that you have, and Victor mentioned it too, now there's no excuse. You know, back when I was in college, there was no LinkedIn. Now there is a LinkedIn. You know, you go on there, you could do a search for alum, and a lot of alum are actually very happy and willing to help people who've gone to their schools. I know that with my first job out of Cal Lutheran, I was helped by an alum, by just a cold call. You know, I got from one of my professors, Professor Julius, who I believe is still there, just by me going to him and saying, this is my desire, this is what I really would love to do. And I had certain insecurities because I thought, well, who's going to hire me? You know, I'm an international student. They have to do all this paperwork. And there's a plethora of all of these other students who are coming from bigger schools. So I already was saying all these self-defeating things and had these thoughts about myself and how I was going to, be taken out of the race before the race even started. And, communicating this with my professors. So again, utilizing your network and saying, I really want to work for one of the big 5 at the time. And this is what I would like to do. And he said, well, why don't you call this guy? He used to go to school here. I believe he works there. I'm not sure. Let me go see if I can find his card. That's how it all started. I took his card. I was not as bold and courageous as Victor. I was really nervous to call this person, but I did. I just called the person. His name is Rick Prowl. And you would be surprised how people are so happy to help another person who's come from where they've come. And so that's how I got my first start. And after that start, it was truly amazing. So utilizing your network, LinkedIn, look for alum, and also having an outstanding attitude where you nothing is beneath you. You're willing to do what it takes. You're willing to do what people ask you to do and not complaining and feeling like you're entitled to all of it, right? We've all gone through it. I've done things that I never thought I would. I have a degree. Why am I working on this? But I did it anyway with a smile on my face, and that paid a lot of dividends.
Thank you so much, Thembi. Nighat or Victor, if you have other specific tips to share related to overcoming stereotypes, bias, feel free to share that. We also do have some pre-submitted questions. So I do want to, not pre-submitted, I'm sorry, some live questions that Dr. Shane has collected. So we want to get in a few of those before we wrap up.
Okay, I just have one thing is like, just try to be, first of all, go in the work field with resiliency, with the attitude that I will overcome every obstacle and every person who's, even if you're not finding your group to be so welcoming to you, just go with resiliency and also be authentic be authentic, be real. Believe me, there's a lot of value for who we are originally. Making ourselves somebody else is not what is valuable. So research the company also to see what is their diversity, statement, or what is the people. Glassdoor is a good place to go and search any company. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nighat.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that really quickly. It's very important to know the company and the job you're applying for. Some of the mistakes undergrads do is just applying, and if you're fortunate enough to come in an interview and you just don't know anything about the company, so please try to do a little homework about the company you are hoping to work for and who you are interviewing with. It's a very good icebreaker, and guess what? You might find about the company, you might decide not to go to the interview.
Thank you, Victor. So Dr. Shane, did we have one of our questions from the Q&A?
Yes. Okay. So this is really interesting because there's 3 questions, because we do want to finish on time, because we know that everyone has things that they need to do. A lot of faculty and students need to get to class. So the first one actually follows up with Victor, what he just said, which is really interesting. So Victor, what should the students actually look for, okay, in terms of to see if they would be a good fit with that company, if what that company really looks like in terms of race, in terms of DEI? Let's say you're there for an interview, one day we'll still be doing this, walking around, a company. What are some of the things that you should really be paying attention to? What should we be looking for in terms of seeing, how well the organization is really doing DEI?
That's a great question. I think a very good place to start, as I said, is upper management. Then when I say upper management, I'm saying the C-suites. Most of these big corporations, they publish all this information with the CFOs, with the CEOs, kind of look at key positions to see who are running it, because some companies, they do the talk, but no action. You see everything is just one way. So that would be a good sign to watch for.
I actually have a different, I think it's really great to go into companies and to look at all of those things in terms of, what does their upper management look like? Are there people, is it diverse, or all of these things? Maybe I'm a little bit different, but I tended to kind of ignore some of those things. And the reason why I ignore them is because if I paid attention to them, I wouldn't want to go work anywhere, because I wouldn't see people that look like me in management, or I wouldn't see a picture that would make me feel like that deja vu that Victor was talking about, something familiar, something that looks familiar. So especially in the field that I was in at the time that I was going into it, even now, right? So if I'm going in an interview, I don't see a lot of people like myself. I don't see like a lot of people like myself that I'm interviewing with, or that are in the C-suite and things like that. But that should not deter you from pursuing what it is that you want. Maybe you'll be the first. Maybe you could be that trailblazer that goes and says, hey, to Nighat's point, I can overcome anything. I can do anything. So just because of what something looks like, what a company looks like, that should not be an indicator that whether you should pursue something or not. I would say, if you want to pursue something, you go pursue it. If you want to see a change, then be that change that you want to see. Maybe you'll be that person that breaks that ice, and you're the one who's going to be the first of this, so you can be an inspiration to other people. So that's my take on it.
So the next question I'm fielding to Nighat, because this is going to be a great one for you. Is there an active group at CLU to get together with different cultures? I am a new graduate international student, and I'd like to connect with other cultures, including American students.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, there is a group, there is a club called United Students of the World. And in the United Students of the World, there is some officers or some members from international, and some are from, American and European, African, everything. We have it. Yes, because of the pandemic, the group is a little silent because there's not much they can do. But in the future, you can join that group, and there is so many that they can do if they have more perspective and more team members. Yes, so yes, United Students of the World.
Thank you, Nighat. Yes, great group. If any of the students want to know more about that group, do please go to the website for the Center for Global Engagement. Right. Again, really great group. And so another question, what else can CLU and the School of Management do to prepare students for racial disparity, for DEI? What else do we need to do at the School of Management? What are some of your suggestions?
Maybe some classes. Okay, we are like School of Management and more focused on MBA and this and that. But a class in sociology, a class in topics like this is important no matter where you go. No matter where you go, whether you're a doctor or you're a CEO of a company, you need to have a little bit of the kind of a background on what humans are. So I think a class in that program that is a little bit away from their concentrated curriculum.
I also think another suggestion could be, say, maybe per semester, a forum, and hopefully we'll be done with this pandemic and maybe have some speaker come in, once for the semester, have a big forum to talk about the real life and what's happening there and kind of just exchange ideas, kind of like what we're doing right now, but maybe in the forum setting.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that question has come up in many different avenues as well. It's a tough one. The reason why I say it's a tough one is because, these types of things really begin with an individual, right? So, having, loving one another as human, I don't know if it's something that can be taught or mandated. It's something that has to come from within, and in like when I for example with my own family and my children, I always talk to them about before you go out and try to save the world, or before you go out, my daughter is really into cleaning the ocean and things like that. She wants to clean the ocean. I say, well, is your room clean? So before we go out and actually do meaningful impact out in the world, one of the things that we have to make sure that is we're checking ourselves, right? How are we treating others amongst our own family, in our own circle, and having that spirit of curiosity, right? So even when we're in regular classes, even in your accounting class, even in your whatever class, when your professor is showing you respect, the students are showing one another respect. In that forum where you're together, those little things actually carry big weight, because it's how you treat each other on a daily basis that's going to translate how you're going to treat others in the world, right? So we can have a class, we can have rules, we can have all these things, but if it's not in here, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, I have to piggyback on push back a little bit. I think it's not, the idea is not about teaching or changing people. I think in the society where we live here, the problem is more of awareness. There's a lack of awareness. And I think these forums or these moments are teachable moments, because believe it or not, there's some people that don't have our experience. There's some people they've been in their bubble. They have no clue. And it's not out of malice or intentional. They just live their life and thinking that's what it is. I think the idea is really to kind of speak to people to say, hey, this is what is happening. So it's more of an awareness as opposed to trying, as you said, you can't teach a human being to be good, to be nice, but it's putting that awareness. We are very blessed and fortunate that we have an international background that these things like this is funny because you're born with it. Even in Africa, you're talking about race here. We're in Africa and we're all different. Nigeria has more than 200 different ethnic groups. So we are already used to that salad plate, but a lot of people have just been in one, homogeneous environment since they were born. So the idea of this, especially CLU, is really to reach out to people and say, hey, this is what the real world is. I think that's what it's about.
That's great. So on that note, I want to thank everyone and thank you. First, Jeannette, Pugh, thank you very much. You are, just wonderful to be here. She gave up some time that she could have been working on her dissertation. So Jeannette, we so appreciate, all of the work you do for us here at Cal Lutheran at School of Management. Thank you very much. And thank you for the panelists, because we would not have this without you. And so we really appreciate, all of you who are students and alumni and coming back and, giving us, just like you were saying, Victor, giving us some awareness, okay? And some understanding and some tips and recommendations about how we can really move forward, right? To make our workplaces better and our world better. So thank you all. I do want to let everyone know that there are some resources, as you can see on the screen. These are some of the resources at Cal Lutheran University that they have to offer. If you look down at the bottom, the Center for Global Engagement, for the person who posted that question about groups and teams, okay, do please go visit the Center for Global Engagement, and that's where you will see some more information about the clubs that are offered. Again, hopefully in the fall, we'll be back together and can, have more social involvement in those clubs. So again, thank you all so very much for being here. Again, Jeannette, panelists, we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing all of you next year at the next DEI in the Workplace event preparing for. Thank you. Have a good evening.